Hello, rock stars, and welcome back to our Polaris quilt along. My name is Holly Ann Knight, and it is my job to guide you to quilt with confidence. Now, I am going to get, and I really hope that my laptop is not dead. We are successful, hallelujah. Let me get our live pulled up over here. If you are live with me now, do go ahead and say hi in the chat. We are still connecting to the internet. Here's the deal, y'all. We are going to make our first Polaris block together today, and it is going to be fabulous. But before we do that, we are going to have a little bit of a community moment. Now, those of you who were here in 2020, you know that this is not new. I get asked all the time, where did the name String and Story come from? And if you're not familiar, String and Story was born out of my postpartum journey. And after I had my two boys, I had horrible postpartum depression. And I very much say that quilting saved my life. And I know that that is true for many of you as well. And I chose the name String and Story because I really wanted to emphasize that I wanted to build not just a company, but a community where we don't just sew and make quilts together, but we truly do life together. And that means that here at String and Story, we share our hard stories and we share difficult conversations. And this morning, we're gonna have a difficult conversation together. We all woke up this morning and we saw the results of the United States presidential election. And many of you share my feelings about it. I woke up scared and disappointed and hurt. If you did not wake up feeling those things, if you feel differently, I invite you to use your compassion over the next few minutes and in the coming days to understand why many of your friends and neighbors feel so scared right now. Okay? I shared just a moment ago about where the name String and Story came from. And another fun fact about String and Story is it is a totally woman-owned business. Now, it only became legal in the United States for a woman to own a business without a man about 36 years ago. If you've been paying attention, I just had a birthday and I turned 33. That means that my ability to do this and to own String and Story is only about as old as I am. It is because of the work of brave, progressive women that a law like that passed so that I can have the company I have today. Now, I also shared about how String and Story was born out of my postpartum journey. John and I were very fortunate that when we decided to have our children, we did not have trouble getting pregnant. But postpartum was unbelievably difficult. And if I am very honest with you, my boys are very fortunate to have a mom. As a result, we rely on modern medicine, on modern birth control to not have more kids. Because we believe that the boys that we have deserve to have a healthy, present, and alive mom. The ability for a woman to get birth control without a man only passed into legal status in the United States about 50 years ago, within my mother's lifetime. And in between those two things came the ability for women to get business loans, to have credit cards, to buy houses. And not too long before that, within my grandmother's lifetime, we gained the right to vote. All of this is very recent history. And right now, the very recentness of it and the result of last night's election makes this morning feel rather dire. But as you also know here at String and Story, we are big fans of the joy units. We believe in joy. We believe in the power of creativity. I have said time and time again that I really and truly believe that when we sit down and we make a quilt for someone that we love, there is an alchemy that happens. And our love for that person and our gratitude for their very existence gets infused into that quilt in a way that we cannot fully understand. So I'm going to invite us, as we transition from our little community moment into quilting our first Polaris block together, to have a moment of alchemy. I designed this Polaris block for my dad. And another piece of my story is that I was very much raised in church, and raised in religion, and raised to be a follower of Jesus. Now, I no longer attend church, but I very much still consider myself a follower of Jesus. And whether the story of Jesus resonates with you religiously or not, I want to share a little piece of it and how it is reflected in this quilt because I think it is relevant for us in this moment as we seek to conjure hope and community and joy, even on the darkest of days. Now, the story of Jesus, if you're not familiar, is that he was a radical Jewish man who preached unheard of love, compassion, and care for the people who were most marginalized in his society, including women. And because of his passion for other people, his radical love for his neighbor, the powerful state, the government, executed him by crucifixion until dead. And in that moment, all hope seemed lost. But alchemy was afoot, magic was afoot, a miracle was afoot. And again, whether this story literally resonates with you or not, I hope its message will. 3 days later, that tomb opened and it was empty. Death didn't win. Hopelessness didn't win, and hate didn't win. And those are the things that I want us to hold close as we put this block together this morning, okay? All right. Jan, Suzanne, Robin, Margot, I am so, Dot and others, I'm so thankful for you. Thank you for showing up today. I love you all so much. Let's sow a little bit of hope together, all right? We have worked together over the last few weeks to make a whole lot of pieces. And today we're gonna put the pieces together. Now, I'm gonna do kind of a funky thing, and I'm actually gonna pivot this for just a second. Whee! Because I want y'all to be able to really see what I'm doing, and it is gonna be a lot easier if you have a little more space, all right? Now, y'all have asked me a few times about a small change that we have made to the pattern, okay? And that is for putting these two pieces together. Inside the Polaris pattern, your cutting instructions has them in squares, okay? And you cut strips, and then you subcut them into squares, and y'all very much pointed out wisely to me, like, hey, why didn't you strip piece that? Okay, and there were two reasons, right? One was that the first draft of this pattern was written back when little baby quilter Holly Ann didn't know about the trick of strip piecing and then cutting yet. The other reason is that just like we're doing together as part of this quilt along, I love the ability to make the Polaris pattern scrappy, okay? And so cutting it into squares is a little bit easier if you're trying to do scrappy math, because going, okay, I need 4 squares per block. I have a piece this big, can I get that many squares out, right? That math is a little bit easier. But if you, like me, are using larger pieces of fabric today, and you're wondering, how can I make those strips and then subcut them? You will match your number of background strips to your number of color 3 strips, okay? So however many strips of color 3 you cut, that many of your color 4 background strips are gonna get paired up, and you'll just piece them together like this. Now, I was working from some funky pieces. Obviously, these did not totally match up. I sewed down for as long as my cornerstone piece was. I will end up cutting this off, and I will subcut that into my rectangles. And we just call this a little bit of creative cutting, okay? But it does save you a step to do this and then cut out sets of 4, all right? I'm gonna pause for questions about that, and because y'all are writing some really lovely things in the comments, and honestly, my heart needs it this morning, so I'm gonna take a moment to read these, if only to myself. I'm just sending y'all so much love. Betsy, love you so much. Thank you for listening. Dot, I appreciate you. You know, a member of Team Rockstar texted me this morning and said, oh my gosh, you have to go live. And I will be honest with you, again, if this doesn't religiously resonate with you, that is okay. I just want to be honest about where I'm at, right? Because I think being honest and transparent with one another is one of the greatest gifts that we can share. I just hit my knees and prayed, like, how do I share today, right? Because today's a doozy, right? And we're gonna, I have no platitudes, I only have community, all right? All I got is for us to hang on to each other. Okay, if you have questions about that, oh shoot, I need my water. Hang on. We are functioning on half a brain cell, but hey, we're here, so it's gonna be all right. All right, so once you have those, you're also gonna need those background rectangles. So 4 background rectangles, 4 rectangle units made out of your cornerstone and a piece of background. 1 center quarter square triangle. Remember, each thing we've been making makes 2 blocks, okay? 2 flying geese that match one side of your quarter square triangle and 2 for the other. Y'all are just the sweetest. I am so thankful for y'all. And 2, not 4, 2 of the rectangles. 2 of the other side of your quarter square triangle and 2 of those flying geese. And then you should have duplicates of everything else, right? Just set the duplicates to the side for a second and let's lay out this block. I'm geeked. This is my first Polaris block for this quilt to put together. I was secretly hoping to get a few put together ahead of time, but you know, life be life in this week, as we know. So we're gonna lay out those rectangles on either side of the quarter square triangle. You're literally just playing the color matching game for this part, okay? And then you're gonna put your geese right out from that, like this, okay? Then we fill in our corner bits. You can get as systematic or as unsystematic with this as you want. My only encouragement to you is to make sure that your cornerstones land in the corner. Okay? Because if they don't land in the corner, I don't know if y'all can see it. Can y'all see those top blocks up there? My units got twisted, right? And my cornerstones did not land in the corner. That's what we're trying to avoid, okay? And then your final, oh hey, I have a cup holder. Ka-chunk. Then your final rectangles are gonna go in like this, okay? Now we're gonna have a wee bit of chain piecing to do before we can web this block, because as you will see, we can make everything to be a square of this size, right? It's gonna end up being a 9 patch of sections that are this size. But we have to piece them first. Look how pretty that's gonna be, y'all. I love it. All right, let's turn this. Am I just gonna work with the sewing machine at a super weird angle today? Yeah, I am. You know what? What's a cattywampus sewing machine in a cattywampus world, you know? All right, so we're gonna grab each of those cornerstone bits and the background rectangle, and we're gonna put them right sides together. And we're gonna chain piece all of those through our machine real quick. Now, listen, just like I said last week, you know, when you're making your flying geese, or the week before when you're making your quarter square triangles, I'm piecing these 1 block's worth at a time for the sake of demonstration. When you are doing this at home, piece all of your background to cornerstone strips and subcut them. Then cut all your background rectangles. There's a fruit fly flying around, and oh well. Then piece them all together and chain piece them so they're all prepped, okay? So that by the time you go to put your blocks together, they can just be 9 patches, okay? So, when you feed them through so that your seam is going to the dark side, so that the motion of the foot will press that down, okay? And it'll make it a little bit easier. So Jan, with the Fabulism fabric, you mentioned that you're having trouble knowing which side is the right side. Don't overstress it. It is really hard to tell. I would generally give the recommendation of try to be consistent, but even if you're not, it's gonna be okay, okay? Once it is quilted and you know, all squishy and yummy, you're not gonna be able to tell if you got them all perfectly right size or not. It will not be the end of the world, I promise, okay? So once we chain piece those through, we're gonna do the same thing if we're gonna chain piece our geese through onto our rectangles. Perfect, Jan, as long as you get them consistent, you're gonna be A-okay. And Margot says, my cats would jump right up and settle themselves on top of that square. Mine too, honestly. It's one of a number of reasons they're not allowed in the shop. Because they would be a whole problem. See, Jan, it's okay if you stress the small stuff, because that's just part of why I'm in your life, is just to reassure you. And the enormous part of what I do as a teacher is just reassuring everybody that it's going to be fine, right? Like quilting, quilting is not the life or death thing in our lives right now. Quilting is going to be the thing that keeps us, put together. Quilting is going to be the thing that heals us. And we don't have to stress the small stuff in this. This is our space for radical joy and radical creativity and radical community and radical kindness and all of that good stuff, right? That's the point of the quilting, not radical perfectionism. All right, I'm going to swap this like this. All right, so that I can actually press these. If you have a little sunflower cutter to pop these apart, use it. Mine is across the room, and I've already run across the room enough times this morning. All right, I'm going to press towards my background. I'm going to struggle to press towards my background, and I'm going to keep going. Yes, I'm scorching my fingers, in case you were wondering. Because yes, my Aliso iron is set to the only acceptable temperature, and that is heat of the sun. I warn people regularly when we have classes to be careful of their fingers. And I had a friend taking a class recently, and I don't know if it's that she didn't believe me, or just, sometimes she's a little clumsy, but she caught herself with the iron, and let me tell you, the blister was real, so be careful. On these, I'm pressing towards the rectangle. We don't need any more bulk up under there than we already have. Okay. And another thing that I did not mention when I was sewing across these, but I'll hold it up so you can see. I did slightly better on this one. I always want my thread to fall like my thread that's sewing these two pieces together. I want it to fall like one fabric thread above where that little crisscross is, okay? And that's how I preserve my point. So when you notice when I was piecing these together, I pieced them goose up. That's so that I could see and make sure that I was just above the bisection of that cross. And it keeps my points looking pretty, okay? Oh, Tony, thank you so much. Sending you so much love. We all need lots of love and gentleness this morning, and we can be that for each other, right? All right, so now we have 9 pieces. So let's lay them out again. Make sure you play the matching game. We don't want to accidentally twist any of these around. So play the matching game with your fabrics. And I really do, I lay out every block like this. I put the cross in first, and then I fill in the space around it. Because then I can make sure that my cornerstones land in the corner. That's really important, okay? There we go. Our little symbol of hope. Isn't it pretty? All right, we're gonna web this together. Now what that means is that we are gonna chain piece the columns. We're not gonna snip the connecting threads so that we can add our final column, and then those little connecting threads are gonna help us line up our rows. If you are new to chain piecing and your brain just went, blah, it's okay. Take a deep breath. And just watch as I do this, and you'll get the hang of it, okay? This is a trick that if you, like the first couple of times you do it, you're gonna be like, are we sure? But as you gain the rhythm of it, it gets so much easier, okay? And it will save you a lot of time, okay? Here we go. Let's move this out of the way so y'all have a clear path. All right, so we grab our first 2, right sides together. And conveniently, my seams are nesting on this one. You will notice I made a choice unit by unit on how I wanted to press my seams. That doesn't necessarily mean that my seams are always going to nest as we go down, okay? I will fiddle with that when we get there. High premeditation of my pressing strategy is just not one of those hills I die on as a quilter. Conveniently, I think they're going to line up pretty well. But if you were noticing that. Now, again, if I were doing this not on camera, I would have 2 blocks lined up here and I would chain piece. Can I get it? Nope. Dang fruit fly. I would chain piece those same 2 columns of the next block through now, and then snip this one out from the back. So I usually piece these blocks 2 at a time, which is convenient since they come together 2 at a time, okay? So just know there are lots of ways to make this block making process more efficient than I'm doing it right now, because I don't wanna add any more confusion if this is your first time seeing something webbed. So then I can open this up, right? And look how pretty those are connected. Everything is where it belongs. I still make sure, okay, we played the matching game, my cornerstones are in the corner. Check. Now, we pick up the whole thing, and I'm gonna add the next piece, like so. I'm bumping these seams up against each other since they do very conveniently nest, and I am not pinning. You are welcome to drop a pin or 2 in here, if that will make you feel better. And if you feel like it will improve your accuracy. Ha, I got it. Then I take the next column and I open it up and I grab my piece. I play the matching game, say, yep, that's the right one. We can line it up. And we can press it through. And take the final piece, make sure my cornerstone is in the corner. Bump those seams up against each other. Don't be afraid to stop and reposition as you're piecing. Okay. And then, when we open this up, we can still see our whole block. Okay, so this is called webbing, that we've webbed these little pieces together, and we're gonna leave those little threads intact, okay? They're gonna help line everything up as we finish putting the block together. I see y'all popping on. All right, I'm gonna put the block face down, and we're gonna give some consideration to our pressing strategy here. I think I am going to press out on the top and bottom. And then I'm gonna press in the center, okay? Then when we sew these next 2 seams across, if we press them in, then in theory we could rotate the blocks 90 degrees as we put the quilt together, and all of our seams would nest. I know I just said that I don't overly premeditate my piecing strategies, but there are some principles that it's nice to apply. That being said, if you attempt that and it doesn't work, or you're like, I'm gonna make all my seams nest, and you get halfway through and go, man, I was only 50% successful on that. That is okay. All of your seams nesting all the way is not the make or break of a quilt, okay? Again, that is not the life major thing that we're gonna get stuck on today. We got bigger fish to fry, right? Okay. This is the full-size iron this time, Jan. I already had it plugged in. So, all right, so then we can lay this back out, and we're gonna simply flip this down. And notice those cross seams do nest. I am gonna put a pin in this time, because these are longer. Ow, as I stab that directly under my nail. These seams are longer. I just wanna make sure that they match up conveniently. These over here nest as well. Does that mean that I'm probably gonna abandon the pins at some point in this piecing process? Yes, it does. But you will get a more accurate seam if you butt those seams up, and drop a few pins in, okay? And we're gonna sew that. And what I love about webbing is that it means once you get started, there's not pieces going everywhere. Stuff can't get lost, right? I could get interrupted halfway through this block, go do something for the rest of the day, and come back tomorrow, and it's all still connected. I know exactly what needs to be sewn together, right? Pieces can't float off into the ether. It just keeps everything tidy and accurate. All right. There's that one. Oh, y'all, it looks so good. It looks so good. Listen, a little creativity restores the soul, right? I don't think that's actually in Proverbs, but it could have been. All right, final seam, and then we'll press. Notice that I position these pin heads at an angle so that I can get all the way on the seam with my needle before I pull them out. That is on purpose. That helps make sure that stuff doesn't shift and wiggle right as I pull the pin out. So I can get it all the way up under that foot, held safely in place before removing the pin. Okay. Okay. Now, like we talked about, we're going to press towards the center. I am going to set these seams because that's going to make this a little easier. I'm at a weird angle, so bear with me. Anytime you're pressing any of these seams, your biggest challenge is going to be to make sure there's not any fabric kind of hidden in there. Okay, you want that seam all the way open on the front side, okay? I don't backstitch when I'm piecing. The only time, and I will say this because I was working on a project yesterday that some of y'all may see soon. I was working on a project that has partial seams. So if I'm working on something with partial seams or something that's gonna end up getting handled a lot, right? Like, I'm trying to think of another example. Partial seams is really the big one, something where you're gonna be kind of finagling the seam before you're done with it. I will drop a backstitch in there just to secure it. But for straight piecing like this, I do not backstitch. It is gonna be a-okay. The other thing you can do if you want your stitches to feel more secure but don't want to have to remember to backstitch every time is just shorten your stitch length a little bit. That's part of why we shorten our stitch length with foundation paper piecing, is it tends to have a little bit more finagling along the way. And having a shorter stitch length helps hold everything in place, okay? Do a final press from the front, making sure you caught all the things. And there she is. Our first Polaris block. Congratulations, Rockstars. You did it. Our very own symbol of hope and compassion and community, even on a difficult day. Rockstars, I am so thankful for y'all. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for sharing your stories with me. Again, if you woke up this morning and were similarly disappointed, please be gentle with yourself today. Take the time that you need. Make sure that you're drinking water. Make sure you're eating nutritious food. Get some time outside and some fresh air. And get some time at your sewing machine, stitching these little symbols of hope in a difficult time. If you woke up this morning and you felt differently, please put on your compassion hat and consider why some of us might be living life stories that make us feel so differently, okay? Our community is powerful. I believe in us. And Rockstars, we're gonna keep stitching hope and love and compassion together. Enjoy making your blocks this week. Bye for now.